Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmidty, Swanee and Clarkey visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised. All right, how are we?
Wonderful, how are you?
Yeah, super.
Very organised. Oh, not really. I finished writing my notes 7 minutes before start time, so it was toit like your father.
Nailed it. Toit like a tiger.
Got there, though. Any news from you guys?
I've got some. I think we need to cut it out, though.
Well,
So
I was... Well,
no. I think you'll agree. So I was messaging today. So she was listening to the Baldwin Society murders. Mm-hmm. Remember the one where the bloke murdered his wife and got away with it and it changed the laws in Victoria? I'm saying this for Swanee.
Hang on. He murdered.
So he murdered his wife because she criticised his sex.
Wank hands. She did wank hands at him. Remember?
She was a horsey person. She found a new man, went back to the house.
Yes.
He said something about, look at the lovely girl.
I know exactly.
I know exactly who you're talking about. Wank hands, and so he killed her.
I know exactly who you're talking about. Yep.
Thanks for that news, Clarkey. You're right. I have cut that out. So for our listeners who didn't hear his news, it was something that we couldn't repeat. But good news. Yeah, good one. Yeah. Swanee, did you have anything?
I don't think I do.
No,
nothing major. No, life's just ticking on. Busy bees and that's all.
Same here, really.
You too?
Yep.
Oh, we did go and see Ice House on the weekend. So we went to the.
I did see that.
Yeah, we went to Red Hot Summer Tour, and I hadn't seen Ice House since, they were big.
1984.
But they've still got it. Is the
Ivor Davies, isn't it?
Yeah, he was very good. He and the band.
Good.
Oh, that's
69
good.
years of age.
Is he really? Gosh.
Yeah.
I was just listening to a song on the radio on the way home just then, and I listened to like a lot of 80s and 90s stuff, but a Phil Collins song came on, and no one really likes Phil Collins. No one goes, oh my God, I love Phil Collins, right? But it was Easy Lover. It is such a fucking cracking song. I turned it up nice and loud. I was like, I have become that woman of a certain age, and I was loving it. I was like, this is such a good song. How come I never loved it when I was younger?
Yeah, fantastic.
Because it was Phil Collins, and I wouldn't have been.
Yeah. It's a legitimate reason.
Yeah, because it's Phil
I'm
Collins.
with you
right?
on
But
that.
the song is brilliant. So well done.
We have used the expression women of a certain age a few times recently, you and I, Swanee. And
too much?
Well, no. When we were in the UK, Tony and I, Greg Wallace got into a lot of trouble.
Yes.
And I'm not sure what's happened because I haven't followed any of it since then, but it sort of blew up while we were there. And he was in trouble, firstly, for allegedly sexually harassing women in MasterChef and in his career.
Yep.
And then he got into double trouble, a bit like Prince Andrew, because he gave an interview where he said something where he made a reference to middle-class women of a certain age.
Yeah.
And I
middle age or middle class?
No, they were middle class. But they
of
were
a certain class, middle age of a certain class.
Yeah, right.
And I kind of laughed because I thought, everyone got up in arms about it. And I sort of thought, oh, God. And then you and I just keep using it because we are women of a certain age.
It's the class thing that makes it judgier.
Well, I'm not even sure what his point was, whether he was saying that certain women of a certain age did or didn't like his advances. I
think was the answer. Oh, no, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I do remember that. I remember reading it, whether or not they pretend that they don't like it, but they like a bit of attention kind of thing.
Weird, yeah.
That wouldn't have gone down so well, I don't think.
Well, no, the minute a man says a woman of a certain age, everyone's going to want to punch him, right? Yeah. It's different when a woman says it because we're talking about ourselves. But I must admit, and I've talked about this in the past, maybe not on the podcast, but when I was young, Swanee, when we went to Italy, remember when you were young and the Italians are all a bit over the top and they're all very, wanting to make sure that that they find you attractive. And you go back when you're in your 40s and they don't. And I know, right? And so I was never upset when we got undue attention when we were in Europe because I always thought how awesome that was. and now it doesn't happen so much. And I think, at least I got it at some point.
That's sad. It's a fine line between the compliment of somebody finding you attractive and the harassment.
Yes, it is. And the fine line is usually drawn whether you find the person who is complimenting you attractive or not.
I reckon that's right, which is
Yeah.
very hard.
It's hard, right? Because it's so subjective, you know. One person's hot stuff is another person's bowl of vomit, you know. So
Your ick, is it your ick and your... hang on, that's not it.
Yucking your yum.
That's it, yeah, yuck.
you could be yucking someone else's yum. That's right.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell sometimes. All right, shall we introduce ourselves? I'm Schmidty.
I'm Swanee.
And I'm Clarky, and together we are
Trial by
Wine.
And what are we drinking?
Water.
Oh, lovely. Piss water too.
Yeah.
Snap.
I'm sure you don't want to hear all about that.
We're
Liz.
on water too, but it's not piss water. Ours is just bubbly water.
Oh, okay, right. You two are very boring. I'm drinking pirate juice. Ha!
Good. Oh, that's good. They're good.
Wondered why you had that parrot on your neck, on your shoulder, I mean.
That'd be it. What, my head? All right. So I suppose I shall tell us a story.
Oh, could you?
Now, from the outset, I will let you know that this is a pretty sad story and it's got some nasty things that happen in it. So buckle up, bit of a trigger warning.
Oh.
I remember being in the gully at Ilden walking Dushka when I first heard this story covered on another podcast, and it really stuck with me at the time. And I think you'll discover why as I do my best to tell this story.
You already sound emotional.
I know, doesn't she?
Yeah, that's very foreboding.
I only finished it. I finished it like 7 minutes before we started recording,
right.
so I haven't had any opportunity
to
come down from where we ended with it. Yeah.
Don't you bring me down today.
My sources are Wikipedia, abcnews.com.us, KSL radio podcast, which is called Cold. All That's Interesting, oxygen.com, and they covered a Dateline episode on the case, and a 2-part special by NBC, which we'll cite later because it's one of those spoiler alert ones.
Giveaway ones.
Our story starts in, and I'm probably going to say this wrong, but it's...
Yep. You haven't said it right so far.
You're pretty close.
Pile up.
That's not...
8-car pile up.
Pile up. Washington. It's not Puyallup and it's not Puyallup. It's something
How's
like
it spelled?
Pile up. Puyallup. Pile up, I think it is.
P-U-Y. Hang
I
on.
listened to what's one of the Wayans brothers saying it, and he couldn't get it
Pile
either.
up.
It's
One of
not
the Wayans
Puyallup,
brothers?
it's Pile up.
What were the Wayans brothers doing talking about it?
Not sure. Because I was trying to find the pronunciation. Anyway, it's about 35 miles from Seattle and 10 miles from Tacoma. It's also the birthplace of Joshua Powell. Joshua was the son of Stephen and Terica Powell and was born in January 1976. One of 5 children, he had 2 brothers, Michael and John, and 2 sisters, Alina and Jennifer. They were all members of the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints, but Stephen, the dad, wasn't a fan, and at some point he denounced himself as a member of the church.
What were the kids dragging him there?
The wife was, I think. The whole family were in it, but yeah.
It seems funny that the dad's the one who's like, oh, I'm just not that into it.
No, he
it's like,
wasn't
you kids
into
got
it.
me going to like the Church of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah,
You're
no,
a bad
he said,
influence.
don't want to be part of that anymore. And also because I'm addicted to pornography that I like to share with my sons. These are sort of reasons that Terica
It's counterintuitive.
What?
Kind
That
of
escalated
counterintuitive.
quickly.
Yeah, Terica cited for their divorce in 1992, which apparently was pretty acrimonious and went on for at least 2 years. I think they actually finally divorced in 94. The other reason she gave was that he didn't believe in rules. The only rule,
dad?
the only sort of rule in the household was that whatever he wanted to do or he was in charge of. He was, by all accounts, a massive knob and a narcissist.
How old were the kids when they were getting the porns shared with them? Pretty young.
Well, if Joshua was born in 76 and she's divorcing him in 92,
Yeah.
he's about 16 at that point and he loved a bit of porn and he's handing it around. Jennifer told the story of one time when she was about 9 or 10, they went somewhere. I don't know what they were doing. They went on a trip and she was staying in a hotel room with her father. And she's all cuddled up in the bed, ready to go to sleep, and he puts the TV on and he's surfing through the channels and he comes across a channel that has got a hardcore porn program on, which he decides to sit and watch while his 10-year-old daughter is in the single bed next to him. And she was like, that was weird and uncomfortable. So just setting the scene about our mate Steve, who I think I call Creepy Steve or Steve the Creep at various moments. Josh, who I think was the eldest, if not Jonathan was the eldest, one of the two of them anyway. And they all described Jonathan as having mental health problems. There was something wrong with Jonathan. No one really talks about Jonathan much, but anyway. Josh showed some early red flags, according to one of his sisters, when he killed her pet gerbils. And he allegedly also threatened his mother with a butcher's knife.
Oh.
Jeepers.
Oh.
He also attempted suicide at least once, so I think we can fairly safely say he had a troubled childhood. Might have had something to do with Stephen, his love of porn, and his lack of rules.
His particular love of gerbil porn. How did he kill the gerbils? Was it in a porn incident or was it
I don't know if they were put into any form of toilet paper roll and inserted into anyone's bottom. I don't know anything about that.
Okay. Is that still the standard way, or is that still, because I remember learning about that at school from Richard Gere, right, or whatever?
Yeah.
I presume that's what you're referring to, Schmidty, although judging by your face, maybe not.
I didn't learn about that at school. Do you mean in a subject taught by a teacher?
No. I just feel like it's one of those urban myths that you used to go around the schoolyard, well before the internet, where it was like,
right.
Richard
Gere was into it. Yeah.
Oh, was it Richard Gere?
It's so specific.
The way you said by Richard Gere, like Richard Gere
was the one who did the
you actually said
the tutorial
Richard Gere, right? And I thought, who was Richard Gere, right? And why was he giving a tutorial about putting a gerbil in a toilet roll and sticking it up your bottom?
Is that your recollection, though?
Oh, there's something like that. So,
Clarky,
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I feel like it's just an urban myth from the 80s. But
that's why when anyone says gerbil, I think of course they died. They suffocated in some dark hole.
Well, that isn't, I think, the way that these died. I think he probably strangled them or something. There were no details as to how it happened. But I don't think it was any form of sexual asphyxiation.
Was it a hardcore sphincter strangling?
I don't think so. Goodness me. Okay, well, I hope you got a laugh out of that because there aren't many laughs.
That's the last one,
yeah. Now we go from here.
All downhill from here.
Yeah.
So he went to live in Tacoma in the late 1990s where he went to school at the University of Washington. But he remained very close to his family, particularly his younger brother Michael and his dad Steve. In November 2000, Josh met Susan Cox, who was in his class at the Church of Latter-day Saints Institute in a course. It's some kind of course that they do where young Mormon kids learn about scripture and shit.
Mormon shit,
yep. From what I understood.
How to knock on doors.
Well, yeah, but just about, scripture and faith and stuff. From what I understood, the Latter-day Saints had some programs for unmarried church members, as in young kids.
Oh, as in getting
that allowed
together.
them to be single and mingle. And it was at a dinner party at his Tacoma apartment that he first met Susan. So, yeah, they were in this kind of church group, if you like, of young single kids.
Sounds fab.
Well,
single and ready to mingle.
It's not unusual. I'm pretty sure we had a young Christians one that my mother would never let me go to, and thank you, Mum. God rest your soul. So,
were you trying to get in there? Were you trying to?
Not really, no. I didn't want to go to the youth group. No.
At least you'd all spend your Sundays together if you were all religious.
Yuck.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yuck.
Yeah, I didn't like the idea of it at all. Anyway, Susan and Josh hit it off immediately.
Oh.
Yeah. And a lot of people felt that they were it was opposites attracting because Susan was outgoing and bubbly and lovely in lots of ways, and Josh was called by others a bit weird by those around him, and he was very quiet and reserved. Except, of course, if you spoke to him about anything that he knew about, because apparently he was a massive know-it-all and know everything. And if you talked about a subject that he didn't know something about, he'd change the subject because he liked to control the topic of conversation. And apparently he's a bit obsessive about things too. And in hindsight, when I kind of looked at how people described him, we might at this point suggest he was perhaps undiagnosed. He goes on to work in computers, spends a lot of time in his study on the computer. Reminds me a bit of my brother-in-law, that kind of thing. Just quiet guy.
I was thinking suspicion that what happens after that doesn't remind you of your brother-in-law.
No, it does not. No.
Just to be very clear, yep.
Yeah.
They started dating and they were really into each other, and things progressed very quickly, and they were married within 5 months in April 2001.
No shotgun.
No shotgun.
Just love.
Yep.
Pure,
The church would have been
Mormon
happy with that.
love.
Susan felt that she had found the guy for her. She was keen on having, starting a family, getting married, settling down, having the suburban household. All of that was her dream. That was what she was headed for. That was her plan. And he seemed like the right guy for that. And he went along with it. I assume that he had feelings for her as well, but if you look at photos of them at the beginning, they seemed very connected.
Well, that's nice.
Yep, so they got married and they lived with Josh's dad, Stephen, Creepy Steve, in South Hill, Washington, just after they married. Now, it wasn't a great idea.
Was she a porno fan as well, or
No.
was that something
she was not.
new?
No, she was not.
They're in such a hurry to get married and they have to go and live with.
Well, a young couple,
Steve.
right? And they I think they were just out of university or just finishing university, so they wouldn't have
That's
a lot of
very
money.
young.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It's weird though, isn't it, to get married so that you can rush off and live with Creepy Steve and his porno addiction? Creepy Steve, can we not watch TV tonight?
I don't think Susan knew about that. Let's put it that way. It wasn't a great idea, though, as Stephen soon developed an absolutely insane obsession with Susan, which he documented.
Who did Stephen?
Stephen.
Oh, Creepy Steve.
Oh, shit.
Creepy Steve, which he documented with his trusty camcorder, spying on her while she was doing mundane things like washing or going to the toilet. When I say
I'd love to
washing,
be
I mean
filmed doing
laundry. I mean laundry, not washing herself. So mundane things like doing the laundry or
But going
You had
to
me
the
at
toilet.
You had me at going to the toilet. You didn't really need to worry about the washing bit. I was on to the going to the toilet. That was like, oh gosh, I'd really enjoy being filmed doing that.
I was thinking
That
if I
would
was
make me very
washing,
pleased.
like a camera in your face while you're washing. Go away, Creepy Steve. Into the toilet? What? That's a line you don't need to cross.
He didn't follow her into the toilet. He
He
spied
had
on
camera
her.
window. Oh.
Not with hidden cameras, but he had mirrors and things, and he spied on her, and he upskirted her as much as he possibly could.
Oh, Creepy Steve. You
Obviously,
are
the
creepy.
police haven't released all the video, but there's quite a lot of footage that you can see of this, where if she's sat down and she's got a skirt on, he zooms right into, the line of the skirt so you can see a bit of petticoat or something. But more creepy, well, a bit of thigh and stuff, but more creepy, he says, oh, she did that for me. Wow. That was great.
Oh.
And so the whole time he's filming her, he's sort of, because he's also driving around following her when she's walking out of her office and stuff from work and filming her, and then she gets in her car. She's oblivious to the fact that he's even there, and this is the one that I remember. She gets in the car and she swings her legs into the car, and so her skirt's a little bit ridden up, but not flashy or anything. And that's when he's like, oh, she did that for me. Oh, yeah. He's so off.
Creepy Steve. It's a fine line between making a good family home video and being a dirty perv, isn't it? And Creepy Steve's crossed it.
And there's a lot of home video from what I can tell. There's a lot of filming everyone when they're out. But also at one point he's filming her and she's like, you're a bit too close. No, stop it. And she's got a box and she's put the box down on her bottom so that he can't film her ass or anything as she walks past.
God,
so she's aware
she was onto
of this.
it. Yeah.
She's aware of it and she is not into it and she's not loving it.
She's giving signals that he would misinterpret.
No, he is thinking she is loving it. She's playing up to it. And I don't think she was. She was pretty creeped out by him. Who wouldn't be? And I know she knew about him filming her, obviously, when they're around the house, but I'm not sure if she was aware of him filming her when she was just doing, like, she's on the phone at one point and he's, filming it around her genitals and, like, just at certain parts of her body so that he can get himself off.
That's not for the home movie, is it? That
No,
one? For
no.
the Christmas.
But then he also, like, he goes in a couple of these scenes, he goes into his room and he's talking to camera and he's talking about how he had this incredibly erotic experience where her feet were sore, so he was rubbing her feet and her feet were, on his legs, so they were near his crotch, and she must have known that he was aroused. He touched her calves and he wanted to go higher, but he didn't. But, I bet she wanted me to go higher. And he's sweating and he's like, oh, I'm really sweaty. And
like a pedophile at a Wiggles concert.
Oh, it is so revolting.
I thought it was depressing. It's disturbing is what it is.
It is disturbing, right?
Right.
So, and then she knew, so from her perspective, I've got this horrendously weird, creepy, gross father-in-law. And from his perspective, he thinks he's in love with her.
He's got a hot daughter-in-law who's got the hots for him.
Oh, yeah. He thinks she's the most beautiful thing ever. He said, I'm in a permanent turned-on state when she's around.
Oh, he sounds like just great to listen to generally. I'd really be keen to meet someone like that and listen to that chat. Oh, I'm permanently aroused.
Yuck. In the meantime, Josh gets his bachelor's degree in business and goes out to work. I'm not sure Josh is super successful from a career perspective. Susan also worked as a trained cosmetologist, so she was quite keen on that. But then in 2003, with some help from his sister and her husband, they moved to West Valley City, Utah, in part to have their own space together and in part to get away from Steve the creep. At this point, Steve had actually told Susan that he had the hots for her and that he was in love with her, I think, and that she was aware of it, surely, and, playing up to it. And she's like, no, I'm your daughter-in-law and you should treat me like one of your kids, or even lesser than one of your kids. Like, no. So she rejects him pretty much at that point, and this is 2003. She gets a job in West Valley City working for Wells Fargo Investments, and pretty much everything I saw about Susan Cox Powell was that she was an articulate and intelligent young woman, apart from her choice of husband. But, you can't win them all. Josh worked as a computer programmer, and from the way he's described, sounds a bit, as I said earlier, on the spectrum. He wasn't socially adept, but Susan and Josh seemed still to get on really well at that point in time, and everyone thought, don't know how it's working, but it's working. In January 2005, baby Charlie was born, and 2 years later in 2007, also in January, little Braden came into the world. Susan loved her baby boys, and she was so proud of them. And she'd always wanted a family and was devoted to the babies and to Josh. But things weren't going fantastically between the two of them, and by 2008 they were fighting quite a lot, including in front of the boys. Susan had complained to family and friends that Josh had withdrawn from her romantically. He wasn't showing any signs of affection or interest in intimacy with her. She was pretty determined to make their marriage work, but she was also well aware that things were not great. Josh had refused to go to church, which was a big issue for her, yeah.
That's terrible.
Mm-hmm. And even though she'd also complained to him about his creepy father's behaviour, he'd kept up contact with him and was very close with his father, actually, and had said, oh, it's just dad being dad kind of thing. He was also spending money like it was going out of fashion, and he declared himself bankrupt in 2007.
Oh.
On top of that, he was being very controlling of Susan, which she also complained about to her friends. He gave her $100 a week for food and petrol. That's to feed the children as well. Sold the second car because they didn't need the expense of the petrol, so she had to ride into work on a bike, and it was something like 8 miles or something. And at one point he got really angry with her because she gave both of the boys a full hot dog each instead of breaking it in half and giving them half each. And he's just basically a classic controlling prick. So financial control, coercive control, you name it, it's there.
Hot dog control.
Hot dog control, yep. In a video Susan recorded in 2008, she was capturing property damage she said Josh had done, and she wrote a secret will which alarmingly included the statements, "I want it documented that there is extreme turmoil in our marriage, and if I die, it may not be an accident even if it looks like one."
Oh, no.
In an email to Jennifer, who is Josh's sister, she wrote, "Every moment I step back and take stock of what I'm dealing with, it feels like a never-ending cycle, but I'm too afraid of the consequences, losing my kids, him kidnapping, divorce, or actions worse on his part." So by all accounts, she was trying to keep the marriage together, as she seemed,
And he's threatened with all those things. So, yeah.
as she seemed to fear the alternative. Friends had said he had told her on more than one occasion that she or the children would leave him over his dead body.
Nice talk.
Fast forward a year, and and you should see this guy. He looks like a real little dweeb. Like he doesn't look doesn't look threatening.
Like Michelle and Ferret, or
No, softer than that. Like he looks like a computer nerd. He doesn't look like a psycho, and he doesn't strike you. And that's what the friends sort of said. They said, he's a bit weird, but he seemed harmless enough. He didn't seem like someone who would end up being controlling in this way.
yeah, right.
So fast forward a year, and on the morning of December the 6th, 2009, Susan and the boys went to church. Later that day, then a neighbour, Giovanna Owens, I think it is, or Ovens, visited them at home, and she left at around 5. Susan was working on a blanket for one of the kids. I think she was, doing patchwork or something. And then Josh made pancakes for the kids and Susan, which apparently he never, ever did. He never cooked for them. So people thought that was a bit odd. Susan, strangely, then became very tired and had to go for a nap. Josh wanted to go sledding because it was snowy and cold.
Pancakes?
She ate the pancakes. He took a plate into her directly, yeah, and hurried Giovanna, the neighbour, out the door. And that's the last time anyone outside of the Powell family saw Susan Cox Powell.
Oh.
What?
On December the 7th, 2009, Susan failed to drop the boys off at daycare. It was totally
What day was the pancake day? The
Sunday
6th?
night the 6th.
Yeah, okay.
So this is Monday the 7th.
Yeah.
Pancake day. That's the lesser known pancake day.
Yeah, not
Sorry. The alternative one that's not quite celebrated so much.
Yeah. She doesn't show up to daycare. It's totally out of character, and she's meant to be at work at 7 a.m. So the woman at the daycare centre, who I think her name was Debbie, sorry Debbie if it's not Debbie, tried to call her and got no answer.
Sorry, Michelle, if it's not Debbie.
Yeah, sorry. Feeling this, there were many sources, and if I didn't write it down immediately, then I've forgotten the names. Feeling that it was pretty weird that she wasn't answering her phone and the kids weren't there, she called Josh's, and I think she tried to call Josh as well, didn't get any answer from him. So she called Josh's sister Jennifer, who lived nearby, who then I think called Terica, the mother, and they went to the house. At this point, the whole family was missing, as in the two boys, Josh and Susan, and fearing for their safety, Terica called the police. The police arrived and broke into the house as they thought maybe they'd been overcome by carbon monoxide poisoning or something like that. When they got in, there was no one there, but they did note that the couch looked like it had been cleaned and there were 2 fans running to dry it out.
Oh.
Susan's purse, wallet and ID were all in the house, which was also weird given she wasn't there. Giovanna, the neighbour, called Josh at some point, and she managed to get through to him because everyone's trying to ring Josh going, "Where are you?" She told him to come home as everyone was worried about them, and he said, "Yeah, okay, but anyway, I don't know what you're on about. Susan should be at work." So whilst everyone else was rushing around trying to find them, Josh had apparently gone to Susan's work that evening to pick her up. He left her a couple of voicemails, but eventually thought she must have gone home as she wasn't there. When he got home with the boys that evening, the police were at the house and they took him off for questioning. He said he'd gone camping with the boys on a Sunday night when a blizzard was coming in.
Yeah, it's the best time to go.
Yeah, but he'd left Susan sleeping at home. One's 4 and the other's 2.
Yeah, wow.
Freezing temperatures, yep.
Just want to chill.
At night, because Giovanna didn't leave until after 5 o'clock the night before.
Yeah.
So why would you suddenly pack up
go
and
camping? Yeah.
Bit odd, yeah. So the police went and checked out where he said they'd been camping and didn't find any evidence that anyone had actually been there. It was also odd because he hadn't gone to work on the Monday and he hadn't told his boss that he wasn't coming in, but he said he thought it was Sunday, not Monday, so he got his days all mixed up. He said that in one of the voicemails to Susan
Has anyone ever done that?
No, I haven't.
Like for the whole day?
No.
It's not a thing, is it?
No.
Calling bullshit.
No. But he also repeated that when in those voicemails that he left on Susan's phone, I think he called her in the morning initially and said, "Oh, it's weird. I thought it was, I got my days wrong. Anyway, I'll see you later." But I don't know that he ever rang his boss to say, "Sorry, I got my days wrong."
That's the thing. If you ever worked it out, you would ring and say,
you'd be in a panic, wouldn't you? I'm really sorry.
100%.
I should be there. Oh, God. After an hour of talking to him on that night, so this is the 7th of December, they took him home on the proviso that he was to be questioned in the morning again the next day. So they said, you have to come back to the station tomorrow morning at 9 or 10 or whatever, and we'll have a chat. And the reason that they didn't search the property at the time was they didn't think that they had enough evidence of probable cause. So they didn't think they'd get a warrant to be able to search the house. And I did see one of the investigators say that if he had his time to do again, that is one of his biggest regrets. The next day, I can't remember who, I think the sister and someone else or a friend, some people go round to the house because they're finding it all a bit weird. And Josh is cleaning. He's cleaning the lounge room, he's cleaning the garage, he's cleaning his car, and he's doing the laundry. Are you falling asleep, Swanee?
Yes. Sorry. Oh, my God. I can tell you exactly what you said, but yes, I was falling asleep.
That's okay. It's because I've got such, calm
No,
tones.
it's not. I'm just really tired.
That's
Sorry.
right.
It's very hot too. Go.
So he's cleaning everything, right? He's doing a big clean up. He showed up for his appointment at the police station 4 hours late on the 8th of December.
Maybe like the confetti like we were talking about before. It was cleaning.
I was busy.
I started one job and it led to another. I started another job, led to another.
Yeah,
I was going to laser around all day, but then time confetti happened and...
Yes, and I'll put a load of washing off and I'll wait to put it out.
That's right. It'll just stink if you leave it there for too long. So they but they also didn't ask him what he'd been doing for those 4 hours. But they interview him again and he's not giving them anything much. They keep saying, I don't know, Susan should have been at work. I don't know where she was. They kept questioning the weird camping trip. No one really believed Susan would have let him take the kids into the desert when a storm was coming in on a school night. And then Josh made out Susan was suicidal.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, I think the investigator said, was there anything else, mental illness or suicide? Oh, yeah, she was suicidal. Yeah, she was. But no one believed it, of course. After the interview, the police told him his van was still being searched, but it'd be available in an hour or so. And by that they kind of meant, well, just hang around for half an hour. You'll be able to get your van back. He hangs around for about 15, 20 minutes, and then he gets a cab to Salt Lake City International Airport where he rents a car. And he puts 807 miles on it.
What?
That night or that
night.
Day, that night.
They do not know what he was doing or where he went, but he told his sister that he'd driven laps around the city all night.
Doughies.
Yeah.
Just did laps.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
What is interesting, however, is that neither Josh nor his father Stephen received or made any phone calls on their mobiles on that day.
Hang on, repeat that again.
Josh and his father Stephen didn't receive or make any phone calls on their mobile phones on that day.
Anyone. So they're not worried, they're not calling it to get...
Almost like they turned them off
so that they wouldn't be
GPS
tracked.
Possibly. It is 2008, but yeah. It's just an interesting fact because no one believes that Stephen had anything directly to do with this.
Right.
No one does.
Well,
just give the old perv a break. He had nothing to do with it.
Well, he was actually in Washington, I think. He wasn't actually physically in...
Yeah. I'm a dirty old man. Not a
Salt Lake City.
Watching porn.
Utah, Salt Lake City. Yeah, I was having a wank.
I'm sure that was true.
12-hour wank.
All day.
Yeah. So while they were questioning Josh on the night of her disappearance, so this goes back on the night of the 7th, that hour. Yeah, she disappeared on the 6th. 7th is when they noticed and everyone was called in.
Yep.
They also spoke to Charlie, who was the eldest of the two boys, the 4-year-old. And there is footage of this interview where the investigators are asking Charlie where he had been the night before. Where'd you go? What'd you see? And He said that he and his dad and mum and brother went camping, but that his mum didn't come back with them. Charlie was only 4 years old, so I'm not sure how much you can take as gospel from what he said.
I'm going to go all of that.
Some of it was a bit weird. He said they'd been to a beach and that they got in an airplane and they went to Dinosaur National Park and they went back home by plane. And he said, my mum stayed where the crystals are because it has so much pretty where the crystals grow. And he called it the Dinosaur National Park, which is not an actual place. So subsequent to that, people have been trying to work out what he meant by that. Like there was a place that they visit a lot where naturally forming crystals were, so crystals grow. So they've, in terms of searchable areas, they've been trying to work out kind of where they think that they actually went camping. Charlie's interview gave the investigators enough for a warrant to search the house, and on the 9th of December, they went through the house and found some blood, which was identified as Susan's, on the floor. And the blood was probably aspirate blood on the right-hand side of where the couch was. So remember, the couch had been cleaned?
Yeah.
But there was some tile under the couch, and there were very small aspirate blood drops on the floor, which, interestingly, they did a DNA test on it and it was identified as Susan's, but also there was other blood, which was the blood of an unidentified male. And as we all know, you can have all sorts of samples of stuff scattered around your house from previous owners, etc., not just from yourself. I don't think what they're suggesting is that the blood samples were from the same period of time. They haven't made any statement on it. It's also 2008, right? DNA's only been around kind of in use for 3 years at that point. Sorry, 5 years at that point. So, or was it 2009? Sorry. Anyway, point is, early-ish days in DNA. So the other thing they found was life insurance policies for Susan valued at $1.5 million. Deirdre Chambers, what a coincidence.
What a coincidence.
Oh. Don't you say $1.5 million?
Yeah. She actually knew about them, I think, and that was part of the reason that she was saying, if anything happens to me, keep an eye on that. They searched her work and got into the safe deposit box that she had secretly. And she had made a secret will, and she had some statements in there that indicated she feared for her life. And another strange tidbit, if you like, is that Josh had told a co-worker at some point that the best way to dispose of a body was to stick it in a mine shaft.
No.
And the Dinosaur National Park area that we're talking about, the desert that they think that the kid was talking about, there is an abandoned mine there somewhere. Really? It has subsequently been searched and they haven't found the remains of Susan, but there was a theory for a long time that that's possibly where she was. So a big search did take place, but Josh had absolutely no interest in looking for his wife. And there was another one of those strange things. I think someone said, why aren't you out looking for his wife? And he said something like, where would I even start?
Because I'm in Paris.
It's a bit like, was that the other fellow, your mate, Scott? Yeah,
Scott Peterson.
Scott Morrison then. Yeah, Scott Peterson.
Mm-hmm. Also my mate.
So whilst he was not joining any searches, he did do some things that people found odd, including liquidating her retirement accounts and withdrawing the kids from daycare. There was mention of him cancelling her regular chiropractor appointment, but I didn't think that was really odd, given that she was missing.
Sorry, he had done that, not she had done that.
No, he did. He rang up the chiropractor and said,
well... No, the one before that, the child...
Yeah, he cancelled the daycare.
Daycare, okay.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he should be still working. I'm surely he'd need daycare still, especially in a difficult situation, but don't know. Some weeks after Susan disappeared, one of Charlie's teachers reported that Charlie had said his mum was dead. Months afterwards, Braden drew a picture of a van with 3 people in it and told his carers at the time that Mummy was in the trunk.
Oh.
The police also spoke to Creepy Steve, who continued his mad carry-on about Susan making out she was into him and telling him how obsessed he was with her. Weird. Josh became less and less cooperative with the police, and at the end of 2010, they named him a person of interest. So that's a year after Susan's disappearance.
Yeah.
He took the kids to his dad's place in Pile-up, and and then he and his I've heard it multiple Pule-up anyway. And then he and his brother Michael went back to Utah to pick up and move permanently back to his dad's place with his brothers Michael, John, and sister Alina. And I can't remember where this came into it, but at some point the police raid that house and there's like a noose hanging from the ceiling. It's just weird.
Ew.
It's a weird
So
house.
did he move back to live with his dad and
took his kids, yeah.
so but was his brother and sister living
Michael, John and Alina were all living with their dad in their dad's house in Puyallup.
How old are they?
Puyallup.
Why?
They're adult children.
Weird.
Is it? I lived with my mother as an adult child.
Yes, it is for all of them to be there with a noose. I mean, the noose is probably not the
weird. There was
weirdest thing
something
about
else.
that.
It was just a bit odd. Yeah.
All the kids living with all the adult children living with their dad makes the
That's
noose
odd.
even weirder.
Jennifer's not there because Jennifer's married and sensible. Anyway, she's the only one who sort of was moved.
And not a whack job.
Yeah. And Michael's, by all accounts, extremely connected to his brother Joshua, would do anything for him, and they're just very close. And Alina's the youngest, so goodness knows what she's doing there. But she struck me as being like, I don't know, 20 or something. She was pretty young. We've got Joshua, the two little boys, Michael, John, Alina, and Stephen.
Steve.
Creepy Steve, all living in the house in Puyallup. And
Is it a big house? There's a lot of them.
oh, must be. I think I've been pretty open with this, but anyone who is from Washington is screaming at radio right now about my pronunciation of the place. Oh, well, I tried. Stephen goes out into the world telling people that Susan had been a bit of a hornbag. And
Is this around 2010
10.
still? Yeah, okay.
So he's basically trying to plant the seed that Susan's a hornbag and she's probably run off with someone. Because, she and I had a flirtation and, this kind of thing. So, she could be easily swayed, I think is what he's trying to say. And then also he and Josh are also telling people that she was mentally ill. And her family ignored all of that because at the end of the day it was bullshit. So after someone tipped the police off about Stephen's thing for Susan, monumental freaking obsession, the police took a good gander at him. They searched his house in 2010 and found 4,500 images of Susan, which were clearly without her knowing or consenting to them, as well as his weird vlogs about how horny she made him and what he thought of what she wrote in her journal. That's right, he was reading her journal.
He was reading her journal. Mm-hmm. Is 4,500 a lot?
Oh, I think it is, yeah. Asking for a friend?
It's ridiculous. Yeah. Fucking hell, that's ridiculous.
Were there such things as vlogs in 2010?
Yeah, I reckon.
Okay.
Is a vlog just a video?
It'd be a retrospective.
He wasn't putting it on YouTube. He was just it was for himself.
Camcording.
It was for himself. Yeah, it's personal.
Yeah, I reckon it would have been.
Yeah.
Camcorders, all kinds of weird things happen with camcorders.
Handy.
Creepy Steve.
It reminded me of, I don't know why it's come back to me, but the Brazil nuts, that episode that we did about the bloke in Brazil and the two women with him, and they cannibalized women, but they
that was early, yeah.
And they at some point they made some mad home video. Do you remember?
Video, yeah.
Camcorders, yeah.
Is there another kind of home video? Oh, you guys do them well.
Yeah, we do quite nice home videos, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
yes. Yeah. No one's murdered in ours. The police also thought Josh's brother Michael was a bit sketchy after they found out that he and his sister Alina drove to Utah to visit Josh the day after Susan disappeared. 2 weeks later, they drove back up to Puyallup, the place in Washington, Puyallup. I'm calling it Puyallup, in his Ford Taurus, but it broke down in a town called Baker, which is about halfway. So it's about 1,000 miles, I think. So they break down about 470 miles into this journey in a place called Baker. Now, instead of doing what a normal person would do, which is go to the local garage and say, hey, can you fix my car? Michael decides the best course of action is to sell the car immediately to a wreckers. But
oh, wow.
But he doesn't sell it to a wreckers or a garage in Baker. He pays to have it towed to a place in Pendleton, which is another 300 or 400 miles up the road, closer to Puyallup, because he told people that he wanted it to go to a facility that would destroy the car.
Did it even break down?
Who knows? Even more odd was months later he contacted a satellite mapping company to get any images that they might have had of the yard from the time period that the car would have been in the yard.
None of this is suspicious at all.
Oh, that's funny because the next thing I wrote was
completely normal.
Suspicious much? ? So yes.
Jesus.
So the police found the car in the car lot and had a cadaver dog check it, and the dog indicated that it had decomposing human remains in the trunk of that car at some point.
What does a dog do when they have that? Does it go?
They point. Yeah, they indicate. They do something.
Or
whatever they're
like does it,
it's got like interpretive dance.
Yeah. Hey, it's a cadaver. Yeah, cadaver.
Cadaver, that's terrible, my God. But good, I'll pay it. Yes, the dog does the Macarena, and at the end of it, the humans go, hey, cadaver. Yeah. No. Unfortunately for the police, there was some DNA there, but they didn't find anything conclusive. So that was very frustrating for the police because that would have been a really good lead for them.
Are they all involved?
So that means the family's in on that?
Well, could be.
Yes. I mean, there's 1.5 mil up for grabs, so...
The police raided their home in 2011. And
this group house they're all living in?
In the shared flat.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that house. The one in Pile Up.
But they've already been there before, or did they just take the images of Steve?
They've been there a couple of times.
Right, yeah. Okay,
so they've gone back in again. I think this is after the car scenario, right? So I think they've worked out about the car and they're like, okay, well, we'll go back and see if we can find something else. Okay. Also, around the same time, Josh and Stephen go on TV, and creepy Steve tells everyone that he and Susan have been falling in love and talked about what was in her journals and made out.
But what is it? And his son lets him. Oh, that's weird dynamic between he and the son, right?
I mean,
and they're living in the same house.
It sounds like they're trying to make each other a viable suspect, so the police can't. Like, there's reasonable doubt if they do go to jail.
If you think about the dynamics of this family, that this father has brainwashed these children and he controls them a lot.
Yep. And can throw them under the bus.
Yep. He's a classic narcissist, this dad. So he's going out there saying, oh, she's a siren and she's run off with another man, and, you know, and he's also making references to parts of her journals that she wrote when she was a teenager before she'd even met Joshua or himself.
Yeah. And he's saying that on TV.
Yeah.
Why?
Because he's trying to think what he's trying to do is divert attention to this idea that
paint a picture about her being unstable.
She's disappeared because she's unstable and she's run off with a bloke. It's nothing to do with my son. It's almost like he thinks he's trying to help his son.
Yeah.
And I think it was the daughter, Jennifer, who said, what are you doing that for? You're not helping anyone. It doesn't look good. And he's like, no, I'm doing the right thing, because he's not really very sane, I don't think. He's a narcissist and a fantasist. He's entirely in his own world. He absolutely believed that this girl was in love with him, and she couldn't stand. You know when someone makes the skin crawl. You can see it moments in the video when she's walking past him. The look on her face is like he is making her skin crawl. And it's only because he's her father-in-law that she's trying to be polite. Fortunately, a judge around this time orders Josh and Stephen that they cannot publish any of her journals because, strangely, they were private and don't belong to them. And that was a forever order. You couldn't change it. It was an indefinite order.
That's the first bit of normal behaviour in this whole story.
Yeah. So the police on this last raid found more gross things. Creepy Steve had been filming underage girls next door in their bath or shower, I think, and other women, and was charged with voyeurism and child pornography and was banged up as a result. Susan's dad, Chuck Cox, filed for custody of the kids.
What?
What's his name? Charles Cox. That'll be why Charlie was named Charlie after her father. It's unfortunate, but it's cultural, like it's different, right? So Susan's dad, Chuck Cox, filed for custody of the kids the day after Stephen was arrested. Susan's parents were deeply concerned for the boys living in the house of creepy Steve with a dad who may have killed their mother, as he would be. The court gave them temporary custody of the boys and ruled that Josh would have to move out of Stephen's house if he wanted to keep custody of them. So you can't live in creepy Steve's house if you want to have your kids around. So Josh then rents a house, but it's not even clear if he ever lived in it. So he rented a house for...
He's just pretending, is he?
It sounds like he was pretending, but he pretty much stayed at Dad's. And it would seem that Stephen had a real hold over his kids, except for Jennifer, the eldest, who was estranged from the family and seemed to have a clear view on her dad being weird, addicted to porn, seeing sex workers, being a narcissist. There was I think I saw Susan on video.
Being a pedo.
I think it was Susan talking to someone about the divorce and saying that effectively that Stephen had given Josh's mum an STD because he'd been out with sex workers and stuff. Jennifer speaks very articulately on how abusive her father was to her mother and to herself and siblings. And he seemed to absolutely hate women. You should hear some of the way he talks to Jennifer at certain points in this footage. It's just horrendous. Jennifer wore a wire at one point, and this is the moment where you hear her father say abhorrent things to her. She was trying to get Josh to admit that he'd done something to Susan, and she's like, "Where's the body?" kind of thing. He wouldn't admit to anything and he threw her out the house, but Stephen also gangs up on her and they keep saying things like, "You always were the irrational one. You're insane, Jennifer." Like they completely gaslight her and chuck her out the house. And I thought she was extremely brave. And she believed that her brother was responsible for Susan's disappearance. So whilst there were concerns about Joshua, considering as a person of interest in a possible homicide, and there was cartoon porn, as in hand-drawn porn, found on his computer, although it turns out that was already there and cached by a previous owner of the computer that Susan had bought from someone from the Church of LSD, right? Latter-day Saints, no.
Church LDS.
LDS.
Jesus.
I should rebrand and be way better.
That was an excellent reaction. Yeah. That would be great. I'd go to that church.
Yeah. So, and then we don't know who that is, and nor should we because it's immaterial to the story. But point was, it wasn't his porn, but the police found it and they accused Joshua of looking at bestiality and incest
porn.
Yeah, but it was depicting bestiality and incest. So someone else at the Church of LSD is getting their rocks off on some dirty shit. There were 400 of these images. And so he was now at this point being...
400?
He's now being ordered to go through a psychosexual evaluation and a polygraph test. And then he's sort of lost custody of the kids. This is the situation. But they still allowed visitation to his kids several times a week, although they said you have to be supervised by a social worker. So it's now February the 5th, 2012. Susan is still missing. Steve is in custody and Joshua is expecting a social worker and his sons for a visitation. Trigger warning. Elizabeth Griffin Hall, the social worker, walks up to the house with the two boys. Josh comes out, he grabs the boys and he rushes them inside and he shuts the door and he locks her out and he won't let her in. She's very concerned by this behaviour, so she calls 911. The dispatcher doesn't see the situation as urgent, and I have heard the 911 call and it's really frustrating. And he's frustrated with her because she's saying, "I'm at this house, I'm a social worker, I'm meant to be supervising the visit. The guy's taken the kids, he won't let me in. Can you get a policeman out here?" And the bloke's like, "What's your address?" She's like, "Oh, it's something, I'm not really sure." And then she's saying... She keeps talking and then she goes, "Are you there?" And he goes, "Yes, I'm still waiting to hear where you are." And because she doesn't know the address. And he's like, "Sorry, you're who? And you're with what?" Anyway, it's really maddening. And he says, "Yeah, look, I understand that you're upset, but we have to prioritise life-threatening situations." And she's like, "I think this is life-threatening. This guy is on the edge with the Department of Health Services. His kids have been taken from him. You know, this is not good. I'm very concerned. Send a deputy."
Yeah. Yeah.
They do send a deputy, and I think that it's somewhere between 8 and 13 minutes later, the deputy
Yeah,
comes.
not neck minute.
But by that time, everything's changed. Joshua had taken the two boys inside the house. He had emailed some people saying sorry and goodbye. He took a hatchet and he assaulted both boys, most likely intending to kill them. He then set fire to the house and burned it to the ground with himself, Charlie and Braden inside.
In what time period? All within a couple of minutes?
In the 911 call, you hear the social worker yell, "He's exploded the house."
Oh.
So I suggest he put the gas on, let it build up,
right.
and then he used an accelerant
Gets in there.
and blew up the house.
But what did he do? Did you say a hatchet?
He tried to kill them with a hatchet, and so their autopsy showed a lot of chopping injuries.
I would say that's overkill if you're then going to blow the house up as well.
I think he was
that was unnecessary.
Probably trying to
He's not as efficient as you, Swanee.
Sadly, the autopsy showed that they had smoke inhalation, so they were not dead at the time that the fire took them.
What? Oh,
Yeah.
that's horrendous.
I think the cause of death for all three of them was carbon monoxide poisoning, asphyxiation, as you would get in a fire. So that's horrific. They later found out that he'd already taken money out of his account and he'd actually donated the kids' toys and books to charity the day before he murdered his sons. So he had planned it. He also made Michael his beneficiary of his life insurance policy.
What year was this, Schmidty? Still in
2012. Yeah, February 2012. When Stephen was told that his son and grandsons had been killed, he apparently didn't seem terribly upset. He was a bit pissy with the people who told him, but he was
there any good porn images of the whole thing?
Disgusted. Oh. He then later invoked his Fifth Amendment right to not answer questions about Susan's disappearance and was convicted later on the voyeurism charges in May 2012. Just over a year after the death of Joshua and Charlie and Braden, Michael, who at that point was involved in a lawsuit for the insurance payout and was being questioned by police about that whole car with the whiff of a decomposed body in the back being wrecked when it didn't need to be, he decided, for whatever reason you choose to believe, to jump off the roof of a parking garage and killed himself.
That sounds like a good outcome.
And that was on February the 11th, 2013, except that we still don't know answers. And so Michael might have been able to provide some answers. Stephen Powell, the dad, was released from prison.
So who's left, Stephen?
On July 11, 2017, after serving nearly 6 years following...
Not long enough.
Following his voyeurism and child pornography convictions.
So that only relates to that.
And then he died of a heart attack in Tacoma, Washington on July the 23rd, 2018.
Alone?
So who does that leave? Jonathan and Alana and Jennifer?
I'm not sure if Jonathan's still alive. But Jonathan
was when no one really talked much
no
of.
one talked about him, and it was
don't mention the war.
Yeah, he was the one who was mentally ill or something.
What about is it Alana?
As opposed to the rest of them, who are all fucking perfect picture of mental health.
Alina's the one who went in the car ride with Michael, but
she was in the house. Yeah.
She was in the house, and there's this documentary that I was watching, which I can tell you the name of now. It was unsurprisingly the disappearance of Susan Cox Powell, and it was very good, but I only got halfway through it, and at the beginning of episode 2, it sounds like Alina is basically saying that Susan was flirty with her dad and was really okay with everything, which I'm calling bullshit on, so I'm not watching the second half. Or maybe I will, because I had to pay $2 to watch it, so maybe I will. Anyway, so Susan's parents, Chuck and Judy, sued the state of Washington and the Division of Human Services for negligence after they repeatedly begged the authorities to not allow visitation with Joshua. They did. They were like, you can't, he's not safe, this is not okay, and they just wouldn't listen. Yep. They were awarded $98 million.
Jesus.
Yes. Now, interestingly, that amount was downgraded to $32.8 million, which, you hear about that all the time. People get a massive award, the jury's feeling good, and then it gets appealed. But then it was reinstated to the original $98 million by an appeals court ruling, who was like, no, you do not get to put that down. You do get to pay.
Wow.
So that was interesting.
Wow.
And I can't remember what year that was, but it was relatively recent, in the last couple of years. They plan to start a foundation with the money to help victims and their families to get good representation. So they're basically going to pay good attorneys so that people get a fair run through the legal system.
That's an awful lot of money. I'm surprised at that.
It is, but when you think about what a lawyer's cost, you need that kind of money to be able to do what they want to do.
No, but if you park that, because that's what they've decided to do with the money.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They could say we're going to go and, I don't know, buy a super yacht and
they also
live a high life,
have that $1.5 million of life insurance from Susan's estate because Alina and Therese, what did I say her name was? Is it Therese? That's not what her name is. What do I...
Tourette's.
The mother-in-law? No,
what have I been saying the mother's name is? It's some funny name.
It's very unusual name.
It is. Terrica. It's like Erica with the T at the front. And I wrote Therese at the end there because I kept wanting to call her that, but that's not her name. So
Terrica, it's such an American word.
Alina and Terrica were trying to claim Susan's estate. This is after the children are killed.
You're kidding?
Who are you going to, how do you think that you should have any claim on that?
Got no dignity.
Michael was the beneficiary of, I don't know who was the beneficiary of Michael's estate, because Michael was the beneficiary of Josh's, who was arguably the beneficiary of Susan's legally, right? Michael's dead. God knows where that money is supposed to go. Also don't care. But anyway, Chuck won that case too, and good. Just shows that the courts have done something right there. So they didn't get anything. I'm often surprised at how people who've lost their children find a way to carry on and do good in a world that wronged them. And in this case, Chuck and Judy Cox lost both their beautiful daughter and just gorgeous little grandsons who were all robbed of their time on this planet. And honestly, I'm amazed at their fortitude and grace. To date, Susan's remains have not been found, as anyone who might know where they are have since died. And this is a terribly tragic story, and so very shocking, which is why it stuck in my brain, and now it will stick in yours.
Wow.
Yeah.
Problem shared is a problem
Halved?
halved.
Not in this case, no.
No, I don't think so.
Sentences.
Gosh, it's a lot.
What a terrible family.
I think Stephen got off light having a heart attack and 6 years of jail.
Yeah, it doesn't feel right, does
Nah, he needs a good bit of trial by wine nastiness.
it? Nor does Josh. I mean, Josh, you know.
In some ways, I think Josh was a bit of a victim of his dad, but that doesn't excuse his behaviour. You look at Jennifer.
What do you think he did, Schmidty?
I think he was a controlling... I didn't talk about it because I didn't want to set this up, but in a previous relationship he had before he was with Susan, there was another girlfriend, Catherine something or other, who he met at school, university, and she left the state and broke up with him over the phone. He was so controlling. So I think he was... It's that insidious thing. Like, did he belt her? Don't know. Probably not. But you don't have to belt someone to be abusing them, you know. It's the constant, don't spend the money, don't do that. It's the control. I mean, he took her agency, and she, from everything I could see from her, she was still trying to maintain it. She was still trying to be her own person and raise her kids. And I don't know why she didn't just leave him apart from being frightened of this sort of action. I think that was the thing. I think she just thought it would get out of hand and nasty, really nasty, if she tried to leave.
But what do you think happened on the 6th? What's your take on that?
Sorry. I think he strangled her. I think he drugged her, strangled her, which would line up with the blood aspirate on the floor if she coughed or something in that struggle. He took her probably in the trunk of the van and the two boys because he couldn't leave them at home.
No.
Drove her miles away, dumped her body, hoping that the kids were too small to remember any of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Came back and probably drove around for a lot because may not have realised that people would have noticed. I'm not really sure about the distances.
Yeah.
Then I think what happened was once the police had actually interviewed him for that first hour,
Yeah.
the next day he did a clean-up job, and I think his brother went and picked up, because his brother arrives the next day. I reckon
He's in on it for sure.
his brother, because he would do anything for Josh, went and picked up the body and moved the body. And that's why they haven't been able to find the body, because if the boys were right about where it was left and those clues were correct, I think that Michael moved the body. And I don't think Alina was in on it at all. I think she was probably just going, what's going on kind of thing. But I think that, and I think she's a bit dumb, frankly, from what I've seen of her.
And greedy.
It's just dumb, I think. And brainwashed by her father. I think, why did he kill her? I actually think that there was a period of time prior to, like after they left in 2003, where I think his father got in his ear. And I think his father, because she'd rejected him in 2003, spent a lot of time in Josh's ear, undermining her.
Yeah.
When you think about, by 2005, 2007, and then the wheels really start to fall off. And I think the dad is poisoning the well, and he doesn't want anything to do with her with intimacy. And I think the dad is saying she's seeing someone else, she's doing these things, she's a slut, she's these things. And I think that because she didn't want him, and I think that Josh fell for that a bit. And when push came to shove, there was talk that she was trying to seek a divorce or think about how to leave him. She'd clearly done her own will. She'd clearly been doing, things were getting bad. And I don't think he snapped. I think he planned it. Like if he drugged her, he definitely planned it.
Wow, yeah.
And I think he was a family annihilator in as much as he saw his wife and his children as his property.
Possessions, yeah.
Because after he killed her, it's interesting that he doesn't kill the kids for a year later.
Yeah.
But this is why, 7 minutes prior to us joining and I finished my notes, I thought, what a prick, right? Because just kill yourself. Go ahead and kill yourself.
Every time, just kill yourself.
Fuck off. Why did you have to kill your children? Why did those beautiful little boys have to die?
Or your wife.
Well, if you go, but if
done it
but if you've
before,
done
wasn't
it?
something
After the
like
fact,
that,
yeah.
right, and you think, oh, I feel terrible and I've done the wrong thing. But yes, you're right. Kill yourself in the first instance, by all means. But to go and just, it's senseless. It's totally senseless. So yeah, I mean, yeah, he needs some good nut punching for eternity. It's just awful.
I've just got a massive headache now after all of that.
I did warn you.
Like,
I said it's really sad.
Yeah, I know. You gave me all the warnings. It's just awful.
It's a
Fucking
shocker.
hell.
It's a shocker.
What a terrible bunch of people.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah, absolute
terribly bad.
freaks too.
Yeah.
The dad was a freak.
awful.
I mean, I don't encourage you to look at his videos, but they're just freakish.
No, thank you.
I actually feel sorry for Michael, the one who threw himself off the parking garage.
Why is that?
There's something about him that makes me feel like he's just gone along with it all the whole way. He's just been loyal. He's been brainwashed into this loyalty. I don't think he killed her. I think he moved her body. I think he's complicit. And unfortunately, spineless that he couldn't stand up to the dad or do the right thing. Jennifer is the hero of this story in a lot of ways. She tried to get a confession out of Josh. And if he'd killed his wife, which we think he did, things could have gone very badly for his sister in that situation. She goes on record saying, I'm pretty sure that, yeah, he had something to do with it, i.e., allegedly, he killed her. I think nowadays, post the poor boys being murdered as well, people have pretty much accepted that he killed her. It's all about, the question is much he did. Well, we don't know for sure, but I'm pretty confident. The question is what role the father played in it.
What role the family played in it? Yeah.
You would want to have them as your in-laws, that's for sure.
Well, I just think it's a real shame because she was a beautiful, when I say beautiful, I don't mean physically, she was pretty, but I mean just a lovely person. You could see it in every image. She was just so happy to be a mum. It's really heartbreaking. I don't know the woman, but
it's horrendous.
It's heartbreaking. And then to see her friends talk about it as well in that documentary, it's just awful. They're so heartbroken about the whole situation. It's just disgusting. Come on, give me a sentence so we can close this one out.
Maybe live mine shafting.
What does that mean?
We'll put them all down the mine shaft live.
Yeah.
You could maybe dole out little bits of food, but not enough for all of them. So they have to fight over the, like 3 rounds of sandwiches when there's 4 of them. So that they get hungrier and hungrier. They'd probably start eating each other because they're that kind of people.
What about, because we started on this and I don't think I'm going to I can't remember at what point we talked about this, but the gerbils, right? Instead of gerbils, what about mini echidnas? And we do some shoplifting with mini echidnas.
Oh, and then do you tie a little rope to their feet so you can pull them backwards?
We pull them backwards and we get the echidna out. The echidnas no echidnas were harmed in this sentence, but some rectums were harmed in this sentence.
Oh,
yeah.
Mutilated.
Yeah.
Perforated
rectums all around.
Yeah, that's not a bad one.
For our international listeners, think of a porcupine.
Would you do it like, how when you pull your teeth out, you tie a string around your tooth and you tie it to a door and slam the door? Would you do it like that, or would you just leave the echidna on the rope to the closed door handle so that he couldn't walk away, and if he tried to, he would do it to himself? And you could video it as some kind of weird porn thing
on a
for
camcorder.
People like him who are porn addicted. Yeah.
On a camcorder. Maybe we need to put some kind of, insert like needles or something into his hand, but backwards, right? So every time he wanks, it's got needles in the stick.
Oh, stop it.
glass rod.
Oh, my God.
Because he's just so revolting. Swanee, you didn't watch all of what I watched, right? This man got off light having a heart attack.
I was thinking, I was just trying to come up with some punishments, and I thought that Creepy Steve, I was trying to think
Steve
of something for him, but I thought what would be nice, it's not the right word, but not even fair, because I don't think it's even going to come close. an idea I had was it'd be interesting if whilst he was doing the filming, he had been filmed. So you'd get that, you know where he's the guy who's fucking, and then there's someone filming him.
But I think he'd like it. He's a narcissist, right?
You're probably right.
And he's not anything to write home about, but he's filming himself, thankfully, I never saw him get his junk out, although probably some poor detective somewhere in the US has actually had to see that. But, he's so gross. He's like, oh, I'm really sweaty, because he's talking about how turned on he is, and he is dripping with sweat. He's just... And he's so ordinary. He's not ugly. He's not attractive. He's just nothingness. And yet he's just, yuck.
He's worse than creepy, isn't he? He's past the creepy.
He's just revolting.
But I think that if at least if he had been filmed doing it all, and you'd have that definitive, this is what was actually really going on. It wasn't her being flirtatious.
She wasn't.
It wasn't at that. It is the... the images of a man who was totally pursuing someone who didn't want to be pursued. But at least if there was that footage of him doing that as well, and if if Joshua had had any sense that he could see that his father was baiting that situation.
I think he did know it. But he's so used to his father and so brainwashed by his father that he let it go.
It was normal.
Yeah. More worried about his dad than his wife.
Yes, I think that's precisely the point. More worried about his dad than his wife.
She has more, more.
Because the father is more powerful, Yeah.
There's a TV show, and I never watched it, so I'm going to probably misread the whole thing, but it's called Shameless, and I think it's supposed to be a comedy show.
Shameless Mick?
But this family just seems shameless. Well, I didn't watch either of them, so it doesn't matter. But the family seems shameless, right?
They are shameless. Well, the father's shameless, and I think the children are damaged as a result of the father being shameless.
Yeah, but also the behaviour that they're exhibiting is shameful.
It's
I guess
shameful.
they killed themselves, so they, maybe they did suffer shame at some point. But I get that he might be the one who started it.
I do wonder about Michael, the one who. Jumped off the building. I do wonder whether or not that was shame.
I'm sure it was. I think,
I don't think Josh killed himself for shame. Josh killed himself because...
Well, maybe he did. Maybe it was part of that.
No, he wasn't going to let anyone else have his kids. Could have been a whole range of it. Oh, no, 100%. Right, but he had to go. Maybe the reason he killed himself was shame, not why he killed his kids. But I reckon he would have felt shame after... I don't think he had any shame. I've watched him in an interview with the police. He didn't give a shit about killing his wife. Ooh. He was a cold prick. And he was only interested in himself. He was just like his father. Chip off the old block.
They sound horrendous.
Yeah, and that's why I think Michael, from the little I saw of him, I feel like he's more of a victim and been not coerced, but...
And then able to handle the reality of what he'd been involved in.
As much as a victim of someone who's moved a dead body and hidden the fact and blah, blah, blah.
Can be, that's right, yes.
There's certainly bigger victims than Michael in this story.
100%. All right, so, I'm happy with the baby echidna, or not
Thanks
baby
for cheering
echidna,
us up. That was
fully
great.
grown but miniature echidna.
Maybe a blow-up baby echidna, so you put it in and then you can blow it up.
Oh, God.
Or a device like it, so no echidnas are harmed in this episode.
Even better. Yes.
All right, cool. All right, well, on that note, as we say every week, miss you already. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website www.trialbywine.com to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.